It was the middle of the 19th century, a time when Europe's cities were shrouded in thick, choking smoke, and the air itself seemed heavy with the weight of discontent. The world was changing at a relentless pace. Factories belched fumes over crowded slums, and the hands of children were blackened by soot as they toiled for pennies. The gap between rich and poor yawned wider than ever before. While the privileged few dined in opulent halls and the masses struggled to survive another day. The promise of progress had come at a staggering cost, and beneath the surface of prosperity, unrest simmered. Revolution was in the air. Amid this chaos, in a cramped London apartment, lit by a sputtering candle, a man hunched over stacks of paper, writing words he believed could topple empires and remake the world itself. His name was Karl Marx. But who was he really? A prophet of justice, offering hope to the oppressed? Or the author of one of history's greatest tragedies, whose ideas would unleash storms no one could contain? To understand Marx and his vision, we must first step back and look at the world he was born into. The early 1800s marked an age of invention and industry, but also of misery. The Industrial Revolution promised prosperity, yet its spoils were divided among the few. Factory owners amassed unprecedented wealth, while workers, men, women, and children, endured endless hours in dangerous, exhausting conditions. Their labor fueled the engines of progress, but their own lives were ground down by poverty. The cities of Europe became vast machines for producing wealth, yet they also bred disease, hunger, and despair. Democracy in those days was a fragile dream. Most people had no voice in their own fate. The ruling class, the aristocrats, and the new capitalist elite controlled the government, the economy, and the very rhythms of daily life. They lived in comfort and luxury, far removed from the grime and misery of the working class. Profit was their guiding star, and the suffering of millions was an acceptable price to pay. For the powerful, the world was as it should be. For everyone else, it was a prison. Against this backdrop, Karl Marx's story begins. He was born in 1818 in the ancient city of Trier in Western Germany. From a young age, Marx was brilliant, restless, and fiercely independent, a mind unwilling to accept injustice or complacency. He studied philosophy, absorbing the ideas of thinkers who wrestled with the nature of history, power, and human freedom. But Marx was never satisfied with theory alone. He became a journalist, exposing social and political wrongs, and quickly found himself on the wrong side of the law. His writings were banned, his newspapers shut down, and he was forced into exile. Marx's life was one of poverty and perpetual motion. He wandered from Germany to France, then to Belgium, and finally settled in London. There, he lived in cramped rooms with his wife and children, always struggling to make ends meet. Yet through all his hardships, Marx never stopped writing. He was driven by a passionate rage at the injustice he saw around him, and by an unshakable conviction that history itself was moving toward a great reckoning. Marx was not simply a scholar, he was a revolutionary. He believed that the world could and must be changed, not just through ideas, but through action. And the heart of his theory was a bold, sweeping claim. All of human history is the history of class struggle, from the slaves of ancient Rome to the serfs of medieval Europe. From peasants to factory workers, every society had been divided between those who owned and those who served. The rich and powerful exploited the labor of the poor, building fortunes on the backs of the many. To Marx, this was not a natural order, it was a system destined to collapse. In 1848, Marx and his lifelong friend Friedrich Engels published the Communist Manifesto. It was more than a book, it was a call to arms, with its famous opening line, "A specter is haunting Europe." The specter of communism. Marx and Engels declared war on the world as it was. Their message was radical and uncompromising. Workers of the world, unite. Only by overthrowing capitalism, they argued, could humanity build a new society, one without classes, without private property, without exploitation. In Marx's vision, the means of production, factories, land, and resources would belong to everyone. government itself would fade away, replaced by a true community of equals. The manifesto was explosive. Across Europe, revolutions erupted. Workers and students took to the streets, demanding change. Governments panicked. Police hunted Marx from city to city, trying to silence him. Yet his ideas spread, whispered in smoky taverns, argued over in slums and factories. Marx believed that capitalism was unstable, doomed by its own contradictions. As workers became poorer and more alienated, they would rise up, shatter the old order, and usher in the age of communism. It was not a question of if, but when. But history did not unfold exactly as Marx had predicted. He died in 1883, buried in a modest grave in London, never seeing the revolution he had dreamed of. Yet his ideas refused to die. In the decades that followed, Marx's writings inspired movements across the world. In Russia, Lenin and the Bolsheviks seized power in the name of the workers. In China, Mao Zedong led a revolution that would transform a nation. In Cuba, Vietnam, and beyond, Marx's vision became the rallying cry for those seeking to overturn the old order. For some, Marx was a hero, a thinker who gave voice to the oppressed, who stood against the tyranny of wealth and privilege. For others, he was the father of regimes that brought suffering on a vast scale, revolutions that replaced one form of oppression with another, and dreams of equality that ended in dictatorship and fear. Yet even today, Marx's legacy endures. The world has changed, capitalism has adapted, and new challenges have emerged. But the questions Marx asked about power, justice, and the meaning of freedom still echo. In every protest against inequality, in every demand for dignity and rights, the spirit of Marx's words can be heard. Karl Marx wanted to change the world. In many ways, he did. But the story is not over. Was his vision a path to liberation, or a dream that turned into a nightmare? The answer is still being written in the struggles and debates of our own time. The question remains: workers of the world, unite.